Because when we first met, I found you to be so calm and such a like beautiful, positive and calm energy. And I think this is something that I needed in my life.
And this is what we talk about now more and more with like owners is there's a chronic issue that I do not, blame them for. It's a very hard challenge, but it's like the single most important thing is if you're not floating, you have to float. You have to be in your practice because there's the positive, which you just spoke on. It's like you give off calm. There's an aura about you that just it's attractive. It even can help like regulate and calm others down just by your presence. And there's the negative side of that too, where it's like if that's what you're selling, that's what you're meant to embody, but you're not. It's the opposite. It's repelling, right? And it makes it very hard to be running a business like a float center.
Even like an hour and a half is enough. But yeah, we'll see how.
Okay. You ready? So, welcome everyone to.
Start again. Okay.
Welcome everyone to the second episode of the Float Practice podcast. I am joined today by Emmanuelle, who, if you don't already know, is my partner, my fiancée, has recently joined the business to be working with me. And so, today we're going to be talking about our journey with floating, how my float practice was kind of a core memory, core bookmark milestone within how and when we met. And sort of the whole history of what has led to this moment for our journey, our work, and her blossoming float practice as well.
Yes. Is it my turn?
Yes.
All right. Well, hi guys. This is my first podcast ever, so I'm excited. My name is Emmanuelle. It's a French name. As you can guess, French is my first language. So a little disclaimer, sometimes when I get a little nervous or a little shy, I can struggle with my English. So
the rest of the podcast will be in French.
Yes, bonjour. Bear with me. But I'm happy to be here. This is really exciting. We've been wanting to do this for a while, and I think it's the perfect time to do this podcast with everything going on in our life and exciting things that are coming up, and we'll talk about that. I definitely want us to explore a bit how he introduced me to floating, how I found it, how it has been transformative in so many ways. And how much I love floating.
Well, we can start there. So essentially, this was something I'd forgot about until a couple months ago, maybe. We first met almost exact. I think it was my 14th or 15th float of the first time that I did 30 days of floating straight. So, you know, if you're listening, if you run a float center, if you've been following for some time, you might have heard me leaning into this more and more. I've been really trying to guide more people to do this, and that originally came from Glenn Perry. I'm just kind of echoing his advice. So at the float conference a few years ago, he was giving a talk and really recommending that people, if they have not before, they have to float for 30 days straight. And at the time I had done, I think, a few different bouts of 14, 15 days, which also was just really rocked my world, my understanding of what floating can be. You know, that's, I think, what we're trying to speak on much more. We're trying to go deeper with this. We're, you know, have so much to say to, I think, open up that conversation more and more. And yeah, so taking that advice, trying to kind of take the baton a little from Glenn, and as I said, echo and speak on that more. And so I, you know, wanted to lead first by example, do my own 30 days, and was able to make that happen with my home float center, Spa Ovarium in Montreal. I'm very grateful for all the floats that they've hosted for me. And in the midst of that 14, 15 days, which was, I found, especially within the 30, it was another layer of deepening. But I think it was in that same week, I guess, that day, the next day, we had our first date. What do you have to say?
It was great. I loved it. No, but I think it speaks, knowing you now and knowing floating, it makes so much sense reflecting on it that we met in your 30-day float challenge, because when we first met, I found you to be so calm and such a like beautiful, positive and calm energy. And I think this is something that I needed in my life. And like the first time that we met, I was like, oh my God, he seems so like, so shy, so calm. I was like, what's going on? And no, it was a great date. And we went to the museum and we were walking around, and we were talking about like what we do in life and everything. And you started talking about floating, and I had never heard of it before. And then I was kind of, you know how like on the first date, you're like nervous and you're like listening, but you're also like you want to make sure you're making a good impression. So you're like half listening. At least I was.
I was fully listening.
I know. And yeah, he pulled up his phone and he showed me what floating is. And at first I couldn't understand what you were doing. I thought you were selling like baths or like like float tanks. I didn't really know what you did until like second or third date. I asked Anne, like, remind me what you do again. I'm a little confused. So yeah, no, it was a great first date for sure. And it makes sense, like I said, that you were in your float practice like very deep in your 30-day float challenge, because just like the aura that you had, the energy was I think it really
attracted you.
Yeah, attracted me to you.
Yeah.
Definitely, for so many reasons. But
well, and this is what we talk about now more and more with like owners, is there's a chronic issue that I do not, you know, blame them for. It's a very hard challenge, but it's like the single most important thing is, if you're not floating, you have to float. You have to be in your practice, because there's the positive, which you just spoke on. It's like you give off calm. There's an aura about you that just it's attractive. It even can help like regulate and calm others down just by, you know, your presence. And there's the negative side of that too, where it's like, if that's what you're selling, that's what you're meant to embody, but you're not. It's the opposite. It's repelling, right? And it makes it very hard to be running a business like a float center. But to go back to, you know, our journey, I remember again, looking back, I was at such a critical point in the business. I think we had just, by the seat of our pants, we were stretching very hard, myself. And then, at the time I had a team. This was the end of the agency days. But not only that, I had stretched really, really hard to use proceeds of, the work with our clients to invest a lot of money into, these commercials, these stories. Again, big shout out and appreciation to Bernard and everyone at Sparovarium, because they were a big help in collecting these stories and finding people who had floated a couple times up to floated 8 years plus and had this beautiful practice themselves, this beautiful aura. People like Haja. And I remember, that was, I think, what I was showing you, and I was excited to be able to showcase, like, here's what floating really is. Here's how it's helped people. And, I'm a creative and I'm an artist. Anthony, Leanna, my friends at Haven, who help produce and create all these videos. Yeah. They're incredibly powerful, and they're incredibly beautiful. Yeah. And, we were going into the holidays. So, like, it was such a wild time, I think, in my life, where I was starting to feel, in some ways, like I was seeing this new potential path of really creating content and sharing these stories, and really the importance of that, not only to educate people, but to be able to, like, have you understand, like, someone who's never floated before, to really get it. And I think I was also early in starting to see the cracks and where that wasn't working anymore. Even when we were creating these beautiful stories, we were getting really good results. Like, going into the holidays, that was the time when we would help people the most, and yet there was this, like, discontent I think I was feeling.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and so that was really the start of the transition, is like us coming together. I was, our relationship blooming and forming. And that was a big change. But then it's like I was in the midst of this, like, the start of this very, very big change, which now over the last couple of years, you've seen the entirety of.
That's one thing that I really want to touch upon, is, like, I've seen you through everything, obviously, and been together for 2.5 years ish. And, like, I have gotten to know floating through you, so we can talk about my first experience with floating and how it's been so amazing since then. And but also I've gotten to know, like, the industry of floating itself, because 2 years ago we went to the float conference in San Antonio, so I got to meet some people in the industry. I got to understand it better. We now work together for the float practice. Like, we're business partners in this. And I've also seen you through the whole journey of going from an agency to mentorship to now we have the OS. It's been a beautiful journey to see you on, all the ups and downs, and it's been very eye-opening and very like, I've learned a lot from the float industry through you, and then also seeing stuff on social media, getting to know people floating myself. It's been, very fun for the last 2 years.
And I think it's, part of this last 2 years, I think, like, our relationship is one thing outside of this, but also integrated in it. Yeah. There's a lot of surrender necessary in relationship, right? That's like I think a core part of having a healthy, deep, solid relationship. That's what I've really learned for us. And whether that's romantic relationship, business relationship, friendships, I think there's a constant surrendering that has to happen.
Yeah, it's related to floating.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's what, as we've been, working deeper with my clients, like, really trying to uncover, like, okay, there's all this noise, there's all of this challenges, not only in the business but the world. There's a million problems, and it's really hard, but what is, like, kind of at the core of this, and, like, what are we actually trying to communicate, and what are we selling, what does it actually do for people? And a really core part of it, even in the physical posture, is surrender, right? Like you get in the water and you have to let go.
Surrender and trust a lot.
Yes, trust and faith.
Yeah.
And again, like our journey, our relationship, and alongside with the business, it's just been a constant surrendering and kind of riding this wild wave.
In a beautiful way.
Yeah, but it I think in a very challenging way too. And, I kind of just laughed to myself because it's like, my experience for myself in my life, for us, I see our clients, and it's like so much of it, it's kind of embodied by the float. There's a better way to say it. It's like metaphorical almost to like the float itself. But I think part of what we wanted to be able to talk about in this podcast is like, to a lot of people, sometimes even myself, a lot of times to myself, sometimes to clients, sometimes the people in the industry, it's like, I don't get like what is going on here. And I think the point is to be able to be in a posture where, like, obviously there's strategy. We talk a lot, about the business. We talk a lot about strategy and making sure that this feels right. It's a line that it makes sense. There's solid foundations to it, and at the same time, it's a posture of trust. It's a posture of
completely letting go.
Exactly,
literally.
And not knowing and being comfortable with that, right?
Accepting that we can't control everything. And that's one thing with like floating is like you'll go in the tank and the tank will take care of you, and you can let go, you can trust that you'll be okay, and you can just completely surrender. And I think with everything in life, as much as we can strategize and as much as we can try to fix everything ourselves and control everything, we don't have control over every single thing. And like you were saying, like just completely letting go. It's a daily practice. And I think it's so, what's the word? Like identical to a float practice. Is just trusting the process, letting go, and knowing that you're going to come out on the other side a better person.
Do you want to talk about your first float?
Ooh.
I feel like we joked, I don't know, I feel like I made this joke where it's like, maybe not the first date. I was very strategic of when we when we sort of when did that. I don't remember.
Go floating?
Yeah.
Oh, I know the whole thing, so I will discuss this because it wasn't early on. It was 2 months into our relationship because I've always been very afraid of the dark. That's one thing. It's just, I don't know where it stems from, but since I was a child, like being in the complete darkness, I couldn't do it. I would get panic attacks. Just sleeping, like I would need to have the like no curtains and get some sunlight or like street light coming in when I was sleeping because I just couldn't do with the dark. So when he first told me about floating, I had resistance to it a bit because I was like, there's no way I'm going to be in a pod where there's going to be no light, or just the feeling of being enclosed too, I wasn't a fan of. So I was a bit resistant to it. But I think what really pushed me to do it is like, remember when we first met, I had such terrible back pain. Our first Valentine's Day, we went to a cottage and we went for a walk one day and we came back to the cottage and I was crying, sobbing because I was in so much pain. And I've tried physio, I've tried massage therapy, I've tried osteopathy, everything, acupuncture. They're all great in certain ways, but I've always had this chronic back pain. It's just, I think all my stress gets lodged into my lower back, and it's just, it would never, like I would go to an appointment, it would help me for a few days, a week, 2 weeks, and then it would come back. So I was just so tired of being in so much pain. And he told me, like, floating can help you, like with all the magnesium that is in the tank, obviously with the Epsom salt, it can really help you. And I was like, you know what, let's just do it. So yeah, we booked our first float. And one thing that I really, sorry. Yeah, we're good. One thing that I really appreciate with floating is that it's so customizable to everyone. So right away when I walked in and they showed me that I could keep the light on, I didn't have to close the pod, like that definitely reassured me. So I was like, okay, this is a safe space. So then we did it. And like right away, just laying down and floating, I felt at peace, and I really loved it because I used to be a pro swimmer. I've always loved swimming. I've always loved being in water and pools and lakes, anything. And I remember like when I was younger, I would go to the pool and I would literally just float in the pool as much as I could, like just floating or just going deep into water and just feeling peace, no noise around. It was always like very comforting to me. So yeah, like first float, one thing that I remember is like I got out of it with a headache. I had a bit of a headache and I was like,
maybe dehydrated.
Yeah, dehydrated, and also like maybe I think I felt so comfortable. I was starting to let go, but when you're in the process of like letting go of certain things, your body is like, there's like a threshold that like, if you don't pass the threshold, you're going to be uncomfortable. And then you need that little extra and it's going to release completely. And maybe if I had like an extra 30 minutes, I would have gone out of it better.
Sometimes there's also like a detoxing period effect. Like I've had that many times. I don't think I've had it for a while, but, early on in my floats, and again, like this is where I think my practice, my understanding is deepened, where it's like that was probably one of your most powerful, like the floats that are the most challenging, that you can't settle into, that sometimes you come out of it and you're like, oh my God, I feel like crap. And then like I've had floats where I come out of the float, I'm more tired. Yeah. Because I didn't feel truly how tired I was. And then I come home, have a nap for 3 hours. And then I'm amazing. Yeah. And so sometimes there's this.
So many different experiences.
Well, it can kind of show, like we become numb almost sometimes to how tired we are, how in pain we are. And so it can kind of reveal that to you, but then you're able to actually process it, right? Yeah,
but it's also like that, like we live in a very chaotic world. Obviously, there's so much noise all the time. And we'll talk about this in a bit. Now we live in the woods. We live in this quiet, peaceful place, but we used to live in Montreal. And in the city, there's pollution of everything, like noise pollution. You see so much stuff. You smell everything. There's so much, like all your senses are just so hyper-stimulated, like all the time. So obviously, the first time you go in the tank, like it's normal to be like, oh, what is going on? Like
it's very jarring.
Yeah. It's a different feeling, But I do know that after I got out of the pod, even though I had a headache, I was like, wow, like I feel better in my body, like physically I felt better. And then I was like, it's definitely worth giving it more tries. And then we've gone to float more than once, obviously, since then. And I think the second time I went floating was really the time that I was like, oh my God, this is it for me. Like I need this, because it happened multiple times where I would just float in the tank and I was able to completely like fall asleep and let go. And I would get like a hip shift, or like literally like almost like going to the chiropractor where you feel adjusted, and I would get like poop. Like my hip would go back in place, and then I would feel like release in my back right away. And this is like the release that I needed for so many years, just thinking about it, I'm like, I need that again. I need another float. But yeah, just that one experience that I've had multiple times after in different floats, I was like, oh wow, this is it. And since then, my back has been so much better. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes when I'm more stressed, obviously I can get some pain and I go float and then it helps, but it's definitely more constant than before. I have more relief than before.
I forgot about that at the cabin, the cottage. Yeah. And I can't think of a time recently. I mean, there's times where, you maybe get more tired, or like you're in pain a bit, and then you need to like rest, but like not to the level of yeah, you were like
completely like
paralyzed in pain almost.
Oh yeah, night and day. I remember that one moment at the chalet, like I couldn't move. I was in so much pain. I was like, I can't live my life like this, you know. So I'm grateful for you for introducing me to floating.
But also
the dark. Yeah. So that's one thing, like I said earlier, I was very resistant to floating because I've always been very scared of the dark. I still don't know what's the cause of this fear, and it doesn't matter at this point, but I can kind of say that I'm almost cured of this fear. Like, obviously, I don't necessarily want to go in a pitch black room. Like, I'm not going to necessarily enjoy it. But now I sleep with an eye mask on, like in the dark. And when I go float now, I float in the dark, no music, no nothing. Before, like, I would need, it was kind of like an evolution for my floats, you know? Like, I started, like, the pod was a bit open, with light on, music on. And then it was like, I closed the pod. And then eventually, a few floats later, I was able to do no music, but still light on. And now it's no light, no music, and it's crazy. I never, literally, like, years ago, there's no way I would have imagined that. No way. Or just like sleeping with an eye mask. I would just put an eye mask on for a second and I would start to panic.
Well, I remember, like, I've worn an eye mask because, like, I tried to really optimize my sleep. Like, it's so critical. And I've had periods in my life where I really, really struggled with my sleep. And so I kind of, I think, overcompensated with different tools and practices and stuff. And yeah, one of them was, you know, this really good eye mask that's comfortable and it seals well.
Makes him look like a bug.
So I think I've had that, you know, since we met. And yeah, it was part of our, you know, conversations. And yeah, so to see and kind of hear you go through this, this process, and like quite quickly, honestly, too, of being so resistant, because these are the things that, you know, I think you're a really good example of a lot of people who maybe don't even make it into a float center, or you know, maybe they're coming through for a different service, and you know, the staff, the owner, maybe they see and they can sense this person could get, you know, a lot from floating, right? But they have these blocks, they have these assumptions, these fears of, I'm claustrophobic, I'm afraid of the dark. And, you know, whether or not you can keep most places, you can keep the lights on, you can keep the lid open, there's ways, but they're still, that might be the surface level, right? Of like, I still don't want, this is scary, it's weird, it's unknown, I don't know.
And it's also like you're naked, like you're in a new place, it's like, and also like one thing is it's not necessarily covered by insurance, you know, at least not where we live. So like a lot of people, they don't want to expense out of their own pocket, especially if they're not sure that this is going to work. So yeah, there's so many reasons to be.
But I mean, this is why, you know, we're leaning a lot more into guiding and helping to have tools, resources to shift the conversation of like true sales in these places, right? Because like, you know, I'm kind of like your close advocate, obviously, of like this can help you. I know it can, and I'm not going to like force you or push you into it, but like, I see you in pain. I see you struggling with these things, and it's like, I know that, you know, that you could get into this, right? I don't know the timeline. I don't know how many floats or how long it's going to take or anything like that. But I know that it could serve you in that way. And, you know, I think it's difficult, but like, it's so important to, you know, that person that comes through, or the person you're talking to, you know, on the streets, wherever it is, when they're like, yeah, you know, but I'm claustrophobic, I'm scared of the dark.
It's not so customizable.
And not to just like take that at face value of like, oh, well, okay, it's not for you, because, you know, just to think of what, and, you know, I think you're still in some ways very early in your practice. This is where we might as well, you know, share the news now. Like, as you mentioned, we moved out to the woods, and we've still been, you know, going floating, but I've shared some posts and stories on this. It's there have been times 2-hour commute there, 2-hour float, 2-hour commute straight back, and that's not sustainable.
No, it's definitely hard. but then...
Yeah, so like we are about to get a home float tank for the first time. Thankfully, we're very, very excited for that.
Oh,
and so I mean,
we're gonna
like,
document it.
You're gonna be doing your first 30 days. I'm gonna be doing another one. We'll do it together. And
I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to see
So many reasons. Yeah.
What you. I mean, we're at a very busy. There's a lot of change happening in many good ways.
Yeah.
But it's one of those times where like I've felt for probably this whole year, I would think, like the need to go deeper in my practice, but just being physically challenged in terms of like distance and all these things, and like needing to be here, not being able to be in Montreal to do that. Yeah. So, and I think, for yourself, joining the business, you're leaving a full-time job, like that's a big transition. It's I think you've been doing amazing considering all the circumstances, but like that's where, if you pair up, this is back to my first 30 days, like I was in the thick of it at the most important time of the business, right before the holidays. So yeah, I'm really excited to see, especially us doing it together too. Like,
yeah, definitely. But like, before you get there, I just want to loop back to what you were saying earlier, that like, anyone can have resistance to going floating for the first time. And the fact that it's, like I said, customizable, and also people can take their time to go in. And like, I think it's also, how with like anything in life, when you know that there's a solution and someone else tells you the solution and you're like, oh, I don't want to hear it. Like, you're not ready to hear it. Like, it's important to keep...
What do you mean by that? You know that there's a solution, but...
Like, for example, someone that says like, oh, I'm always anxious. And you're like, I literally have on a silver platter, I'm giving you something that will help you deal with your anxiety. And they're just not ready to hear it. So they're going to be resistant. And they're like, oh no, not for me, not for me, not for me. Like, I think without being too harsh on them, you can obviously like tell them, like keep reminding them like floating can help, like, and kind of, literally pull up the studies that show it, and eventually I think people can meet you where you're at and accept it a bit more. So like, I do, like, now that I understand floating better, I think I've recommended it to every single person that is in my life for so many reasons, like stress, anxiety, fatigue, being just tired of everything, physical pain, anything. So I think it's, anyone can go in the tank. It's just really like meeting them where they're at, but not giving up on them. Not giving up on, like, they say, oh no, it's not for me, and then just being like, okay, no problem, bye.
Yeah, and it's of course a fine line that's you're always deciphering, but I think it's quite clear for a lot of places, a lot of owners, a lot of float centers. It's come up time and time again where sometimes you don't even make the offer, or sometimes you don't even open the conversation in terms of like, do you want to float more, or do you want, like, are you thinking about this in terms of a practice?
Yeah.
And it like it's doing a disservice both to yourself and the business, but also that person who probably really needs it.
Yeah.
But it of course is a fine line where it's like, if they are not ready, like you said, if they may be carrying some very heavy things that might be hard to process. The tank, can probably make that a lot easier and a lot faster. Like, that was my first float, right? Like, this experience of nearly drowning, it's a very heavy, hard thing, but in the right space, it can be so much easier, and you're supported in a way that you aren't in almost any other space. So that allowed me to let go of that. But it's not always like that. Like, sometimes, it's something deeper, or it requires maybe multiple layers of that. And but I think it's that I've seen this pattern, where you just pull back, or you don't make that one more step forward to be like, no, I think, you really do need this. Or I'm trying to think of an example. So yeah, but you know, it just wasn't for me. Someone comes in for their first float. I'm not sure, but it wasn't for me. Like, it's the difference of
why, like asking
exactly.
why.
Like, well,
why,
do
why do you say that?
Yeah, I want to make sure that you're understanding, or that I can support you and make sure that you have like the full experience. Like, do you mind explaining to me a little bit more? And then, you know, if they brush it off one more time, like maybe just one more question, and then if they're really resistant and you notice, then you can back off, right? Yeah. It's like they're not ready, they're not willing to share. But it, you know, we I think so often keep ourselves from just that one extra one or two, that sometimes in many cases someone can open up and be like, you know, maybe it's their neck and they need the neck pillow, right? Something so simple.
Yep.
Or that they are a little unanchored. Maybe something powerful happened in the tank, but it threw them off, and they need someone.
They weren't expecting that.
Exactly, and they don't really know what it was, and they need someone to guide them.
Yeah.
To understand and sort of contextualize it. Yeah. Because it's this very strange, very transformative, very powerful space.
Oh yeah, and it's also like, sorry, I was just gonna say, like, we're. I don't know if you want to say we're on a mission to say this, but floating is not a spa, right? It's not a spa, and it's true. And like the thing is that everyone, like, no one that knows floating, like, it's the first time someone is telling you about floating. You'll show them a photo of a float tank, and I feel like right away we're gonna think it's a spa, and depending on how we talk about it, people are gonna think it's a spa. So then they associate spa with luxury, with like, I do this once in a while. Versus floating is a practice you can have. It's a necessity. It's therapeutic. Like, I always tell everyone in my life, it's literally therapeutic in so many ways. So I think going strong on that message that floating is not a spa can help remove the assumptions that someone might have. Because yeah, like, we live in a world where like people don't necessarily want to invest in themselves, you know, don't in their health.
Yeah, don't want to invest in themselves. Don't have them, like, money. Realistically, don't have the money.
Yeah.
Or, you know, aren't willing to spend the money. You know, aren't willing to, you know, kind of stop other decisions of where they're investing their money and move it over. Yeah. There's all these reasons, and
thinking they're not worthy to.
But I mean, this is like a kind of complex, multi-layered thing where, you know, the way that we, I think, combat that, those assumptions, that mentality of like, oh, I don't have time, I don't have money. Those are the two big challenges, right? Those are the two big blocks.
Yeah.
And we see it and we hear it from even float center owners. That's where it's most chronic and most damaging. You know, that's the mentality that, you know, I need to just self-care. I need to take time for myself. I need to rest and relax. And like, you know, you can say those things, and there is truth of that in terms of just like your basic health and everything, but
sometimes it's in the surface.
Yeah, but also sometimes it's like this subconscious way that we're thinking about it, where we're boxing it in, as you're saying, as a luxury, right? The reason I don't have time to go float is because I have all these millions of things to do at my float center, in my business. I have kids, I have a job, and all of that is true. Yes, that is true. And also, the reason that you probably need floating really bad right now,
it's for all those reasons.
it is because you need to be able to show up better for all those things. And if you're stressed, you're overwhelmed, like you're to the level of like you're in crisis, right? Like, we need to bring your nervous system back down. We need to ground you, help you come home to yourself.
Yeah.
And you know, if we're like, that's not a luxury. That's step number one. That's priority number one.
Oh, yeah.
That's the only way that you can really be able to address all those other things properly, right? And
100%.
You know, as you said, like, if it's not to say that like floating can be a spa service. It's very relaxing. It's very in some ways luxurious. But I think the point we're trying to make, and we're really convicted on this, is like, that's a disservice to what floating actually is and can do for people, right?
It's just like, as much as, it can be compared to a spa in a sense that, like, you know what, I'm tired, I need to relax, I'm gonna go float. Or I'm tired, I need to relax, I'll go to a spa. Like, there's similarities, but it's also coming out of the float tank versus coming out of a spa, I think is different in the experience. Like, I think with floating, the fact that let's say you do a traditional float, like no light, no music, no nothing, you're really like depriving your senses, like it's sensory deprivation. So I think you can relax a lot more, like reach a state where you can really go deep into your consciousness and really like get into a crazy meditative state, versus if you go to a public spa and you're in the hot tub and there's a Jean-Guy and then the Thomas and then Matthew next to you, all these people are next to you, they're talking and they're being loud, you can't fully relax and fully like reach that level of deprivation, literally, that you get in the float tank. It's like different. Like you'll be like the heat of the hot tub and like the experience, like, yes, it's relaxing, but I don't think you can get that level of like inner working, like literally like therapeutic work, like mentally.
And I think like as you're saying, it's sensory deprivation. I try and think of this as like, that's the mechanism. It's how it's made, right? Which is why these businesses are incredibly hard, especially to build. It's almost as silent as you can make it.
Oh yeah.
Like no light at all, right? You have this vessel, this pod, this tank, whatever you want to call it, holding all this water, thousands of pounds of Epsom salt, and all of the sort of engineering for that creates a space of sensory deprivation. But then, like, again, this is the hard wrestling of how do we communicate this? How do we educate people? How do we sell them on it? Because that can sound very negative, right? Sensory deprivation. And it's not sort of even the true, it's part of the experience, but the true experience, I think what you were alluding to is, you actually have your senses heightened, especially as you're saying, you come out of the tank, colors are brighter. You hear sort of, it's hard to explain. Like you hear sharper, or like you hear things more, just differently.
I think it's just awareness. Like you're more aware because you had at least an hour of just completely shutting all of that off, and then being a bit reborn in a sense. Refreshed. Because I feel like, especially now that I'm involved in an industry, like, and I look on like social media for like float centers and everything, like the one message that I'm always seeing is that go in the float tank, you'll relax, which is true. Don't get me wrong. But I don't really see the like in depth of like the therapeutic aspect of it, the how great it is, like with all the magnesium, how great it is for the body, like athletes and like physical injuries, women health as well. Like this is something we can talk about a bit and when we want to talk about the 30-day float challenge we're going to do. But like anything like women health and like supporting pregnancies, supporting people on the spectrum, like there's so many benefits to it. And I feel like we don't dig deep enough,
Well, and it like you just kind of reminded me of these stories. Again, Bernard, I hope he's okay with me sharing these. Bernard. He's a wealth of information. He's one of the OGs of the whole industry. Spa Ovarium. It's this incredibly beautiful float center that is in a old bank in Montreal. If you have not, Google it, check them out. I would recommend you come to Montreal. It's a beautiful city and great culture, and has one of the coolest float centers I think in the world.
Come visit.
And so he's been around for quite a while. He's been doing this for a very long time, and he mentioned he's seen many women who came in, they floated during their pregnancy. Their pregnancy was far easier than most would kind of like typically assume a pregnancy would go, the birth even as well. And he's seen the kids grow up, and he's like, these kids are super healthy. They're, if I remember correctly, he's saying like they're sort of like taught like at the highest percentiles of all many things. And it's just like this very stark.
There's a difference.
Yeah, you could tell a difference of okay, these people are really leveraging floating, and obviously for something like a pregnancy, like again, we talk about the magnesium absorption, how important that is for the body, and in a case like that, it's not just for the mother, but the child as well, and the that's kind of what Bernard talked me through is like the how do you say this? The not having the deficiency, like having someone who is sort of, I don't know if it's the right word, like satiated
in magnesium,
like has
higher levels of magnesium.
Levels of magnesium
for sure. If we do like, because I feel like also there's not a lot of scientific research behind floating, and if you literally do a study, let's say of a group of women that float regularly during their pregnancy and maybe even after the pregnancy versus a group of women that don't float during pregnancy, for sure there's a big difference. Just all the absorption of magnesium makes a huge difference.
Yep.
But and that's the thing, because maybe there's not enough scientific research behind it.
I mean, there's like there's a good amount, and this thing is like, it's like the more that comes out, like a lot of what I've seen has been very strong. There was I think it was a few years ago now, maybe around the time when we met, if I'm remembering correctly, the study around anxiety, and it was like people with mild and even very severe anxiety, reducing their anxiety for up to 48 hours. And the reason it was up to 48 hours, that was when we stopped measuring. So it could have been longer, right? And like, I've dealt with anxiety, especially when I was younger, like quite severe. I think that was part of what, drew me to the tank and what I got out of it early on. And for sure, I mean, like, I wouldn't say that I don't deal with it at all. I think I deal with it in different ways now. Not anywhere near the severity of what I did before. But it's like, again, if you deal with that at all and you floated somewhat consistently, like, I talk a lot about the sort of the baseline. It's like, okay, my baseline anxiety was here when I was young. I was working for myself for the first time, trying to figure out, how do I run a business? How do I, pay rent in Vancouver? I was living at the time. And, I start floating regularly, and it's just, this would continue to drop and drop and drop, and then stabilize way lower.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And to your point of, having people share these stories, float center owners, it's really our job of the leaders of this industry to help educate, to help showcase and spotlight these stories of what's actually happening, right? Like your story, again, to be almost paralyzed in pain of your back pain, and then be able to be in a space where it's not like we're less active or anything. If anything, I think we're more active, right?
Yeah,
than
it's
we were
different,
at that time.
It's different activities than when we used to live in Montreal, right? Like I had access to a spin studio. Like it's different activities, but it's definitely day and night. Like it was horrible. Like the pains I would get, So no, it's definitely. I think that's the thing with the float industry. I think it's booming, right? It's a young industry in a sense. It's a smaller industry. I think there's so much potential to grow it into this beautiful thing, because it deserves it, like floating itself, it's a great tool to use. And it's just probably not known enough. So that's why like not a lot of people go floating, or not everyone is willing to try it, because like they don't know a lot of people that have done it. So there's probably like a lack of trust, because it's like, oh, well, who's done this? Like, I don't know. Can I really trust this?
Yeah. I mean, we've, working over the last couple of years, much deeper in these businesses directly with owners of a float center. It just became crystal clear. It's like the number one issue is education. Like to bring people in for the first time, it's just education. And as you said, probably one of the most important pieces of that is trust. And so, you know, a lot of that we've seen, we're kind of working on this more to try to get this message out, is like people need to see the tanks, they need to see your space, they need to see you, they need to hear your story.
Like seeing, if I right now, I had never floated before. You were telling me about floating, and the first thing I saw was AI images of or cartoon images of a character in a float tank. I would not trust this. Like I would be like, oh, like why am I not seeing a real person through this, right? So for sure, seeing a person do it is it's different, because you really understand exactly what it is. And it's great, obviously you can show just the space, because you can see the whole picture, how it looks like, but really seeing someone in the float tank, I think it kind of it breaks that barrier of like not understanding exactly what it is. Like at least you get an understanding, like, okay, I'm just gonna lay down in the tank. That's like step number one. And then you can explain more and more and more of the depth. And also depending on the person, like if we ask them questions like, what draws you to floating? Like, tell me a little bit about your story. And if it's right away a veteran who, like, you know, tells you about having maybe PTSD and stuff like that, like we have the research, we know that floating can help with that, and we know the reasons why. If it's like an athlete or someone having physical pain, then you can explain floating that will fit their need. So I think it's a matter of really having a conversation and understanding what the person needs, and be able to match their expectations according to them, like their story. Like, anyways, if that makes sense.
It does, and I mean, I see this over, like I talk with a lot of owners, I see this over and over and over again. It's like, as soon as I get on a call with them, I'm like, why did you, this is a very weird business. It's very niche. Most people are not thinking, I'm going to go start a float center, right? Or add float tanks to my wellness center, expand. And they're very, again, the engineering alone to craft the space and make sure it's done well, which most people, you know, are able to do quite well. It's very hard. It's very expensive. Can be slow for a variety of reasons. So like, why are you doing this? And then immediately, just like an overflow. I remember, somewhat recent client, it's almost like it was like a geyser that just like, as soon as it was opened, it was just like another story, another, like a veteran, and this other woman who had this incredible transformation. And I almost had to like, okay, we got to talk about more stuff. Like, let's that's more than enough for now. But the tragedy, and you know, I don't put any blame or anything on them. This is a hard thing to manage, because, you know, part of the education problem, part of the habit building, which is to support them and get them to come back. Because these spaces are so transformational, I think, in large part because it can be very vulnerable. It can be very personal. It can uncover things that are hard to see, hard to deal with. But again, this space itself is so supportive. It is so relaxing. Yes, it's brings you to such a deep state of rest or surrender or letting go that you can usually manage that and let go of it, or work through it to see it, right? Where it's not as overwhelming. And that can bring great transformation for people. But then there's a, you know, we've talked about this, the word has come up more and more. There's a sacredness to that, right? There's a sacredness to what this space actually is. And there's a sacredness to like what it can actually do for people. And I think part of the challenge and the problem, and it feels, I think, like the Achilles heel of this industry is we kind of, I'm not sure if it's like withhold, we kind of like cling on to that and protect it. Sometimes for ourselves, you know, our own story.
Sometimes we do it unconsciously. unconsciously.
Yeah, but also like on behalf of others, even when they give you permission, they want it to be shared, right? Like, you've seen the videos that we've been able to collect over the years. You're starting to work through that more. We hear these stories all the time from our clients, from owners of these spaces, and this also comes from my work outside of the float practice, like with the one project with my art. People get value, they get a sense of belonging, they feel empowered by having their story shared, right? Like this is just, it's we're a storytelling species. Like it's a huge part of how we communicate,
and feeling like you belong with someone that has the same story.
Exactly. And but
like,
it's
I'm not the only one.
It's not even really like the not feeling alone, feeling connected. It's also like, you, for example, you had chronic back pain, right? If you sharing your story, you can help someone else who's maybe right now like listening to this and like they're laying on the couch almost paralyzed, crying in so much pain, and it's like, if you can get yourself into the tank, if you can, spend the time,
so worth trying.
Yeah, and
like you have nothing to lose. And worst comes to worst, you go in it and you literally don't like it the first time, and you step out of the tank, take a deep breath, drink some water, try to just take a moment for yourself and try again, and just go at your own pace. And the fact that, like you said, the float tank is such a supportive environment, because you can be alone and not get judged by others and not pressured by others to do whatever. That might be also one of the reasons why some people don't want to do it, is because they're so scared of being alone, and we live in a world where we can often be so afraid to deal with stuff. And like, we have that, also the idea that like, oh, I can't float because like I have so much on my mind. I have ADHD, or I'm always thinking, and I can't, like, I don't want to, or like I can't
shut off my brain.
Shut off my brain, or let the hamster stop.
Which, by the way, I don't know why this just came to my mind now versus any other time that I've heard that. Well, if you shut off your brain, you're dead.
No, exactly. And like, that's the thing. And
that's not the goal.
No, exactly. Like, you don't need to go in a floating thinking that you're literally not gonna think. That's not the point. Literally, the point is just to be able to relax and let go as much as you can. And even if your brain thinks, like, sometimes I use the float tank to literally help me process ideas and things that I want to do. So there's moments where I'm always thinking, and I come out of it with more clarity. Sometimes I literally fall asleep, and I'm like, literally, I come out of it, I slept better than the night's sleep, And I think a lot of people will have the idea that they can't do it because they can't stop thinking, but you can still do it and think. And the more you do it, the more you'll see that you're able to actually just let go. And it's the same thing with meditating.
That's the wrestle where you can kind of wind yourself into this, kind of goofy, unnecessary, and I'm speaking from experience. I'm, not above this in any way. I still get trapped in it, but it's like it's like this unnecessary, goofy, twisting trap with yourself of, thinking that it's like wrong or bad that you're having thoughts, or that your mind is racing or whatever. And that just, spirals you even more. And it's just the letting go is to just accept that, like, okay, my mind is racing, and like, that's fine. And
to be gentle with ourselves.
Yeah. And as soon as you do, it's like this funny, magic trick's not the right word, but it's just funny, like, how it can feel so almost like impossible of like, I need to shut off my mind, and it's always racing and all this stuff. and it's the fight or the thought, the belief that is wrong or bad, or you should be having this calm, empty monk Zen mind or whatever. And as soon as you give that up, then you're there, right?
100%.
There's another point we were talking about the stories. I think it's just really important to go back to that, like, because this is the whole thing. Like, I think for us to really honor floating as the sacred practice that it is, right? Not just a spa day, not just like a thing to relax or every once in a while when you can afford it or when you can make the time. If you actually commit and go into it and see what it can bring you, you know, whatever that means for you or whatever you need, and that's excuse me, kind of the magic of it is that it gives you what you need, not always what you want, but
that's the
what
thing.
you
Yeah,
need.
exactly. And we often chase what we want, not what we need. And it's important to understand that sometimes you have to stop with the want, focus on the need.
But I think it's the way that we'll be able to achieve that much easier. It's right there, you know, in front of us or within us, is really sharing like what our practice has brought us, what our practice looks like in those deeper levels, because, you know, similar to what we were talking about before, more in terms of sales, it's like if we don't have there needs to be a line, right? Because there are some things that don't need to be, you know, shared on a podcast or broadcast and be spotlit, right? Like there are things people are carrying that they're not comfortable sharing, and that is totally fine. You don't need, it's not about pushing your clients to share everything or give you permission to run an email blast about it, right? That being said, you know, I think there's either no line or our line is far too low in terms of asking, of providing space for people. And then even, you know, if they're willing to share, just seeing like, would you mind recording a quick video? This is something we've worked over for years. And, you know, not every time, but maybe let's say 30% of people might say yes, right? And the power and the ease of how that can resonate with people, how that can help educate them, how that builds trust, you know, versus, as to your point, trying to sort of just doggy paddle up at the surface of the basics of floating. Like it's relax, restore, recover, all those things. That's where you get burnt out. You tire yourself out just echoing the same thing over and over and feeling like it's not resonating, right?
Yeah. Well, maybe while we're on that topic, do you have any, because you've been in the float industry for over 10 years, do you have any recommendations for floats in your own?
I mean,
that's one for sure.
Yeah, it's incredibly simple. It's and again, I say this with no judgment. Like I truly understand how hard these businesses are.
Yeah.
I understand, you know, I have my own story, and there's parts I've shared many times. There's, you know, parts I haven't shared, right? Like there's things that I carry that I've gotten from floating that are, I think, outside of where my line is of what I want to share, right? Like some of that is sacred and personal to me that doesn't need to be shared, right? I understand, you know, the practice. I understand hearing these stories. And I understand sort of how vulnerable it can be to put that out there to people, right? That being said, the amount of times, I don't think I have, it's very, very rare, like, I don't know, within the few percentage points of people that I've talked with who don't have this absolutely incredible, like jaw-dropping story of what has led them to floating, what they've gotten out of it, what it's done for their family members, for their son, their daughter, their husband, their wife. Absolutely incredible. And yet I will, you know, look at their social media, I'll look at their website, I will, you know, kind of talk them through like, what are you doing to try to educate people to bring them in? Because it's like we struggle to bring people in, or we struggle for them to come back, all these very similar challenges. And I don't see any of that anywhere.
You mean like stories being shared? Yeah, like, testimony. It's true.
It like, as we talked about before, it's like, how do we build trust? Like there's a lot of times I don't see literally them anywhere. Mm-hmm. I don't see photos of them, of their staff, if they have a team.
Yeah.
You know, we don't see the float tanks and the rooms, which doesn't have to be fancy photos. It's like, take a photo with your phone. But it's, you know, almost excruciatingly painfully ironic how simple it is. And it just really comes back to the practice itself. You know, are you in your practice first and foremost? Are you still continuing this where you're in a good state to hold this space for people? And then, as you were saying before, like embody it, where it doesn't even really matter what you're saying. It's more of your aura that can kind of like attract people, or like aura education of just like, you're so chill that I kind of understand that there's something here for me. And like, you know, a few other factors and I'm sold, right? Or just some people maybe like sold completely based on aura, based on vibe.
Yeah.
Vibe
like you're
selling.
So calm. I need that.
Exactly. And no, and it's,
how do I get this?
It's like a joke, but it's very serious. But it really just comes down to, like, first and foremost, you know, sharing your story, like stepping your toes a little bit further outside of nothing or very, very little. And I would say just
story.
Yeah, sharing your story.
Keep the numbers, number one, sharing stories.
But
sure.
I think,
testimonials.
You know, it's also just take some time, float on it, you know, have the float where you're racing and you're not racing in your mind, but working through
the
wrestling.
Creativity, yeah.
Yeah, like what is my line? What am I comfortable sharing? What am I not comfortable sharing? How do I want to share that? And I think so often it's also like really sitting with, you know, what are those things that we're maybe telling ourselves? What are the stories, the identities that may not be true, that are holding us back from the thing that's so simple, so easy, that could solve so many of the problems that we're kind of constantly facing. And so, you know, example of that is, I've heard this time and time again. I feel like there's been more of a shift in the last year or so, which I am very happy to see. This idea of I'm not a marketer, I'm not a social media person, I'm not an influencer, I'm not good on camera, whatever the story is, that little those beliefs.
There's always a solution. That's what I'm thinking.
Yes, but it's like almost this, going back to the sales thing, like have you actually pushed back on that idea ever? Where is that idea coming from?
Yeah,
and have you ever pushed back on that idea to be like, why do I believe that?
Yeah.
Is that serving me? Is that true? And then have you ever, because I would say there's maybe some people sometimes where it's like, maybe you've never actually just picked up the phone, hit record, and then talked. And
you think you can't do it, but deep down you can. It's just fear. And it's also, we live in a world of fear, sadly. And, you know, feeling often like unworthy and not having some confidence to do one thing or another, or just, definitely trying to do it.
Yeah. And it can be, you know, going back to, you know, we all have our things in childhood or whatever. It's like a fear of being seen, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we were bullied and maybe all the different things. So again, it can be it's not to say that like there's nothing there. Sometimes we keep challenging, it could be confronting. Float tank is a great place to support you in that, you know, letting go and challenging those things. But you know, some of these incredible transformations and stories that we've been able to be a part of, it's not only this, but like the core of it is really just, they pushed past that, they picked up their phone, they talked about their why, you know, some of their floats, they're walking around their center. It's something that's so simple, and yet you know, a lot of the most powerful truths, I think, are that simple.
Even like asking, like we talked about, asking testimonials and stories from customers. So I think like logistically asking a member that has like a membership or floats regularly, that first off, there's that trust because that customer has been at the center multiple times. Versus someone that is completely new, first time coming, like you might not necessarily want to ask a testimonial unless they're like, they kind of offer it, or like there's that opening for it. But someone that comes regularly, like having the confidence to ask for a review or a story or something like that, or even just using Google reviews. So the amount of gold that you find in Google reviews of people going, like, literally choosing to give a Google review to share their experience, there's so much in there that can be used, because not everyone is going to read Google reviews, but then if you use it on your social media, your Instagram, and someone is looking at Instagram first thing, then they'll see it. So definitely, like, stories, reviews, like having testimonials.
Yeah, and I mean, it's building
trust,
education, it's building trust. And I think, like, there's this really insidious trap. The people, we talked about this on the last podcast, people who are more drawn to float centers, often have carried a lot. They've often, they're kind of people usually have big hearts, very empathetic, prone to be sort of like givers or people, of service.
Yeah.
And it's a double-edged sword. It can be a very sharp, fine line of, there's the positive of that, obviously, but there's the sort of detrimental for yourself and for other people of kind of like being someone who's very overgiving or like a big heart, but not having boundaries around that, right? And I think the insidious thing that can happen is this idea of, I think falling back into some of the earlier things before really leaning into and choosing this this calling. Like, so many people, myself included, it's like I could not have scripted how sort of planned it was, moving to Vancouver and the biggest float center in the world opens, I don't remember, like months or within the first year or whatever, a block away from me, right after I had my first float.
It was meant to be.
And yeah, it's just like there was these serendipities that it's like, okay, well, I would be really stupid to not be like, it seems like I need to focus on this thing, right? Like, people are coming to me from the work from Float House as they're starting centers, and I've just heard this time and time again. It's like, we found floating, we were in a practice, and it's like the only thing that made sense was to then open a float center or expand my business and add tanks or whatever, right? But, so we have people stepping into leadership, right? Like, if you're running a float center, if you're starting one, like, you're in a position of leadership. You're in a position of expertise, and yet I find so many people can kind of revert back to this feeling like we're annoying people, we're burdening people, you're like overstepping, and it's like, no. You have so much expertise, you have so much gold, and you're really the only person who can guide someone properly through this very strange, unique, and at the same time, like, transformational practice, right? And again, this is why the brand shift for us into the float practice, it was that this way deeper understanding of, again, it's really as simple as, if you're struggling in the business or you're about to open a center, like, you need to be in your practice, because you while you're a leader, you also can't do this alone. And like, the playbook is being built, but like, it's the thing that brought you to this business in the first place, surrendering, letting go, and kind of being led onto this path. If you don't stay connected with that, then it kind of falls all on your shoulders, right?
Yeah. But it's also like, one thing that I'm learning from the industry is like, a lot of float center owners are people with big hearts. They found floating and they saw just how powerful it is. It's transformative. And then they've decided to open a float center most of the time. And they have the passion, they have the heart for it. But it's that, like you said, the thinking that you're annoying people, and that you can't, how do you put a price on something that is priceless, And I think one thing is that if you're seeing someone struggle and you're seeing someone that needs floating more than ever, and they really need it, and you let that person walk out without offering to help them, and without offering a membership or just promoting to have a float practice, then that's doing a disservice to the person. It's not helping them. It is literally doing the opposite of what we think is the right thing. And like, I think it's just, one thing also is like that a lot of float center owners, like I said, they have a big heart. They go into this with so much passion, but maybe lacking the business mindset, or the the drive to lead.
I wouldn't say the
maybe not drive, but like I'm struggling with my words, but just being the leader that they know, like that they can truly be. Or just.
But I think so. My perspective on this, I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, again, it comes back to like, it's so easy to fall out of your practice, right? It is very easy to start telling yourself, or to have all these pressures. The world's moving faster. There's AI now. You gotta keep up. You gotta move faster. Your to-do list grows. All these things. A tank breaks down. It's easy to fall into the trap of, I don't have enough time to float. I don't have enough. If you're not like the owner of a float center, I don't have money. Maybe. You're own a float center. I mean, that goes back to time again. If, or maybe it's, I need to make money. I can't just like block off the schedule and float myself while I'm at the center, because I don't have enough people coming through. I need to make money. Right. And we just, again, tell ourselves these things. It's very easy to fall into that. And I think, sorry, I'm losing my track of what you were saying before.
I was talking about drive, but it's not the right word.
No, and it's.
I know.
A lot of people who run float centers are first-time business owners.
Yes, that's kind of what I meant.
Yeah, but and there's these really interesting kind of twists on certain things. Like, I think what you were touching on before is what we've uncovered around sales, and that's, I would say, almost every single float center. I'm struggling to think of an example where it's like, we've got sales covered, like our team is really strong, we're comfortable, selling. Because again, it's people with big hearts. We want to make it accessible. We want to not turn anyone away. We don't want to turn this into like a slimy sales car business where it's all about the money. The tragedy and the irony is that the decisions that get made off of all those things, which are in some ways good and true, right? It's good to want to make this accessible. It's good to not want to like make it all about money, right? But then the decisions that get made off of that, or the things that are, avoided because of it, when we tell ourselves that, is, the things that actually grow the business or bring in the revenue to make it sustainable. And this is where we see float centers, shutting down.
Yeah.
And the owner is like, how is this possible? We have people coming through. We see this. Again, I have my story of transformation. I've seen all these people transform. They're getting so much from it. 5-star reviews across the board. Perfect 5-star. How are we closing? This makes no sense.
Yeah.
And it's because, again, there's a much greater level of education that needs to happen. So, I mean, I haven't really talked about this in a while, but, compared to many other businesses, there's sort of a tax that we're paying right now still, because it's so early. For people who've been around for a while, like myself, it might seem, I think there's some narratives of like, I don't know if float centers are going to, continue for much longer, or like, it kind of seems like we're in maybe like a valley. Is the industry ever going to recover? I don't believe in that. I think honestly we're potentially going to enter the golden age of where floating can help people the most and really take off more.
We just have to, it's a mindset thing. The mindset just needs to shift with anything in life.
Yep.
And I think what I meant earlier, it's not about not having drive. Is like, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming or thinking that a lot of float centers were opened by people that were so passionate about floating, but they never envisioned themselves to be business owners in the first place. Like maybe being young, like they didn't really think they were going to be a business owner. It's just throughout life and finding floating, they ended up being a business owner. And so they didn't think that they would get to that. Versus if you find another industry that is more business driven and finance driven and everything, where people grow up thinking, oh, I'm going to be a business owner and this and this. And it's very, like, I think it's just the journey is different. Yeah. And like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if anyone like opens a float center thinking like, oh yeah, this is the where the money is, or like, I don't know if that makes sense. Like versus if you open like another type of business that it's a booming business, like immobilier, like houses and stuff.
Yeah.
Real estate. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is truth for sure. It's like they're not necessarily coming in to make a ton of money and build a business. I think part of it is like business in general is hard.
Yeah.
Small business in the last long while, post COVID has been really rough. So just business in general is hard. Float centers are like another level for so many reasons, of the engineering, the building of the space, the maintaining of the space, the fact that it's still so I think like nascent, it's still so early, where like we've been having conversations about this for a while or recently. Manufacturers are, it's not this huge industry where like the manufacturers or suppliers and all these things, are established enough to support at the level of where it is now. I think that's a problem. Again, not to their fault. It's just that's where everything's at in the big picture. But I think, again, to go back to your point around business, it's just they're so hard. But I think that like this is where again I've been seeing this and understanding more, and it's almost like beautifully hilarious, where I think it's like it's intended that way. It's like almost by design, so that you have to stay in your practice. To let go and surrender.
You have to.
And know that you can't do it all on your own. But it's this trap that we fall into. I fall into many times. I continue to, and have to remind myself and get back to my practice of like, I don't have all the answers. I don't have the perfect strategic plan, the perfect whatever. It's good for me to have a plan and be strategic and all that. And at the same time, be open to maybe I was wrong, or maybe there's an even better plan. Like us living out here, right? Like I was very resistant to moving out of the city, and then as soon as I let that go, we get the most incredible place that we would not have, imagined.
With
right?
Foxes. And
yes,
so peaceful.
Foxes. We saw a fox on our walk a couple days ago. We'll maybe add a photo here. No, but it's, I see owners burnt out, kind of crushed by the weight of trying to figure it out all on their own, of trying to make it happen all themselves, to have all the answers. And then again, it's this very insidious, you can kind of get trapped in the lies of, well, you're failing because you don't have all the answers. Like you're failing because, it's not clicking or whatever. And then you're kind of like, it's hard. It's a very hard place to be in, right?
I can only imagine.
Yeah. And I have a lot of empathy for them. And at the same time, it's like you have one of the most powerful tools, one of the best options of how to get yourself out of that as quickly as possible in the tank, right? Even if you just shut your business down for like a week and floated for 7 days straight minimum, right? You would lose the revenue temporarily of, if you have, people coming in at that time, the gain after that. And I've seen examples, maybe not that extreme,
but they don't need to, like, you don't need to close your center to float.
I mean, I might recommend it in certain situations.
Listen, I trust you because you've been doing this for over 12 years. To a certain point, you've helped so many float centers. So I know for sure that a lot.
But no, and not maybe not a week long, but a client, maybe a few clients if I'm, but for sure, there's been a couple times where it's like they're in a really rough spot. They're burnt out, and it's like once you're burnt out, and if you're not full, right? If you're struggling to get people in, where they have they close their hours, block their schedule off for a few days, just go on a vacation, like get some floats in. They come back, and then there's an uptick because you need that shift in your mentality, as you're saying, your energy, your vibe, and that does 80% of the work.
But that type of situation, are you talking more about like a solo operator centers?
Could be both, but
smaller
for sure,
versus like a ovarium that is a bigger center with multiple a lot of staff and all of that. Like I don't know if the owner needs to shut down the whole.
No, but I mean, if it's a case of like, strategically you're going down the drain and you feel like the business is about to go under when that's not the reality, I would still recommend maybe not shutting the whole, because like the staff can run in a case like ovarium, or if you're well staffed, you're not involved in the day-to-day as much. It's still a similar thing though, like that has to be addressed first and foremost, before anything else, because you're just not even in a state to work properly, to strategize, to assess where the business is at if you're not in a good state, right? These are the like we've been talking about more and more, the foundations are so critical, and like most float centers have strong physical foundations. The actual center is clean, it's well built, it's obviously things break down every so often, that's a challenge, but like the center itself is amazing. People's reviews speak to that. People put a lot of care. We've learned as an industry a lot more how to build these spaces well. The problem is that's again a very, very hard thing, where then your personal foundations, your float practice, your connection to source, which is the float practice, those suffer in that process, and then we're standing on shaky foundations, and it's a hard place to be.
No, it's not recommended. Do you want to loop back to the fact that we're going to get a float tank and we're going to do a 30-day float challenge? I'd like to talk about that.
After a bathroom break.
Yeah. I thought I was the only one. BRB. And we are back.
And we're back.
Little break. I would like for us to talk about the fact that we're going to get a float tank and we want to do a 30-day float challenge and how we feel about that. And
oh man,
how do we feel about that?
Yeah, long time coming. I mean, it was part of the intention, when we first moved out here, and then I think a variety of I don't know, factors came into how we were going to do that. Originally, I was thinking it would happen at my studio, the office space, which didn't make sense. And so, anyways, we were able to make that happen with Dream Pod. We're getting one of their Flex Pods, which is basically the best fit for where we're at now in this space, in this house. I think I've been floating probably every 2, maybe 3 weeks. I've started doing 2-hour floats for the most part, just for getting more in while not able to do it as frequently, as often. Because for many, many years when I was living in my other place, it was basically every single week, every weekend.
Oh yeah, multiple times a week sometimes.
Yeah, depending on kind of what's going on. Yeah.
It's also like, luckily, because we don't live in the city now, we're more at peace. Like I feel like we still need floating, don't get me wrong, but I think maybe it feels different. Like
I mean, we're less, I think, stressed and overwhelmed by the city. I think it's also though that the work has gone like
much deeper.
Yeah, like 7 levels deeper, where to be doing the work that we're doing now, to be supporting owners at the level that I am now compared to what I was doing before, because there was some of that support but now it's at a much greater level. It's also supporting them in a world that is that much more chaotic, that much harder to make these businesses like really thrive. That's where I think I've felt it more and more, needing to go deeper and be more consistent in my practice.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I'm really excited because, like you said, I've never done a 30-day flow challenge. So I'm really excited to do it and just like document the whole thing. And I'm thinking like I'll do a check, obviously every day after a float. Like I'm gonna journal how I feel, but I also want to do a comparison like every week to see the evolution. But it's also not just the 30-day float challenge, but after that challenge, the fact that we'll have a float tank so easy to access, the fact that I'm gonna finally have more of a regular float practice. I'm excited to see the change. Like I've talked about this before, but I strongly believe that floating can help women with like their periods and just regulating the hormones and like the cycle and just helping reducing cramps, because we know it like magnesium truly helps reduce period cramps. So usually it might be TMI, but like I'll drink magnesium tablets. It's not TMI. It's so important to talk about this, but every time I'm on my cycle, I'll drink magnesium tablets. So I'm curious to see the evolution of my cycles throughout the next few months, knowing that we'll have a float tank.
Yep.
I'm very excited about this. I think I'm going to document this because it's definitely worth the amount of women that have difficult periods and like PCOS and different like conditions like related to the uterus and women health. I think there's so much gold here and there's so much potential, so I'm really curious. I think that's what I'm the most curious about in terms of the progress. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
the journey.
This is where, just to kind of bring it back to my story, my experience, a lot of what I've gotten out of floating stems back to trauma. Like I have a breadth of experience outside of floating that has to do with mental health, physical health, holistic health, spiritual health.
Yeah.
And being in and around the sort of world of mental health, trauma-informed healing. And, more and more we're seeing that. Obviously, I'm not a woman. I have... No, surprise. I've been in spaces around, like, again, having these conversations and learning from studies and how the world of kind of health has shifted to, and again, this is where like floating, I think, can be so transformational, is like so many surface level issues, so many things that people are carrying, and when they're trying to kind of define what is it that I'm actually dealing with, what is the problem, the surface level is more of the like manifestation, but it's like at the root, it's like there's this trauma, that they're holding in their body maybe, or that they've been through, and then it kind of like keeps cycling through and showing as this chronic, as you're saying before,
physical
you hold the chronic pain or whatever.
Yeah. Like stress is held in the body in different places. A lot of people, it's in the neck, shoulders. I get that too, and lower back. So
yeah, and it's like the core underlying trauma that then gets worsened or exacerbated by stress, right? By overwhelm, overstimulation in the world.
Well, there's the book that you got me, the Body Keeps a Score.
That you still need to read? You just out yourself on the podcast? It's your first podcast. You'll learn.
I'll read it.
You gotta be careful.
No, but it's also, you tell me about it. So
yeah.
I know, because you've told me.
So,
for anyone that wants to read it.
An easy lob for, like I've read a lot of books. That's not just like the only thing, but I've had a lot of interest from, my own experience, because, with floating, with past projects and community, I don't know what to call it now, community projects, community social enterprises, as well as my art is all around catharsis. So it's around, you know, the therapeutic arts. So I've always been kind of really interested to understand this. And again, this is where the float tank is such a potent space to help people to see, to process, to hold them, to support them through just resolving the trauma itself, which then kind of like heals the root, right?
Yep.
And this is where, to go back to what you're saying before, these very powerful stories, we see them in the reviews, all these things. It's like people who have chronic pain, people who are veterans, who are, you know, traumatized by war, these things that they've seen, these things that they've their injuries or whatever happened, and you can just be stuck on this loop in this cycle. But if you actually address the root, that's where we hear all these things, as you said before at the start of the podcast. I didn't even know it was possible to like not have pain anymore, right?
Crazy.
The chronic pain, there's so many stories that we see float weekly for a certain period of time. It's different for everyone, but it's like they have this moment. Sometimes it's even in the first few floats. I did not know it was possible for me to not feel pain and not have to like take a pill, right? And that's again the importance of the education. It's the importance of sharing those stories, because you have so many people who don't actually believe that it's like possible, right? They're like so in the pain, and it's been so long that it doesn't even feel like it's possible, or like it's even an option.
Yeah. And even to go back to what we were saying earlier, like talking about this, I've read so many Google reviews from different float center owners of people literally sharing their experience of like, I couldn't go a day without using my like medication for my anxiety or from like whatever it was. And then saying that floating now, they don't take medication. Like, just honestly, I strongly encourage every single float center owners to look through reviews, like Google reviews, because you'll see so many stories. Like, I've seen it multiple times just looking because I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a lot of it like that you can cope with something that you have in your life without medication because you have floating, you know? Yeah,
and I mean, like, obviously caveat with that, just, you know, if you are caveat.
Caviar? What is
no.
What's caviar?
Just important note.
Okay.
my French fiancée.
Caviar.
Like, obviously do that with your, you know, I've seen a lot of these stories where it's like with my doctor's sort of approval, or like with their support, you know, weaning off of chronic pain medication or anxiety medication or whatever. Like, you have to be careful with that. And again, this is the tricky part of sharing these stories is we have to be careful. Like, there's not a guarantee, there's not a promise that you're going to be magically healed.
No.
And at the same time, there are these incredible transformations. There's these, again, I have had them myself, you have had them, we've seen them all over. And yet there is not a guarantee or a promise of how or when.
No.
But even in the studies, we see these incredible reductions in pain, reductions in, you know, I think of, again, the study on anorexia, you know, almost a refreshing, a healing, quote unquote, of like our self-perception, because that's a big part of eating disorders. Right.
But it's, even though there's no guarantee, it's definitely worth giving it a try. I think
100%. It's just, we, you know, by laws of advertising and all these things, we have to be careful about how we're selling it, right? And how we're communicating it. But it's really important that you don't just like, well, I'm not going to talk about it at all, or I'm just like going to keep it very surface level, right? It's just we have to be mindful of how we're talking about these things.
For sure.
So that we don't put people in the wrong expectation. But anyways, to go back to our, you know, we're getting a tank, very exciting. We're going to be doing a 30-day challenge together, like each of us floating in the same day. I'm really curious. Yeah, we're not really sure exactly the day we're going to be getting this or being able to get it fully set up, but this is kind of, you know, the marker pre We'll see how
We're like,
our vibe. Yeah.
So I think, and then after we'll be like, ooh.
Yeah.
So
Maybe a lot slower. It'll feel like 0.5x podcast next after.
Yeah. No, I'm excited to see the transformation, or just see how we feel, like either physically, mentally. I think we'll have also more clarity, mental space. It's gonna help, you know, with processing business and everything. Yeah.
But I think like it's an important, you know, I've had my experiences, the couple 15 days, the 30 days, but even that, like that was a couple of years ago. And I've been really feeling, you know, as we said, a lot's been changing. There's been, we're going deeper in the work. And so I've really been feeling like I need that. I've had some back-to-back floats, but even that, like a couple weeks go by and then I feel the need for more. So I'm really excited to have that more sustained, you know, letting go, really getting some deep rest. Cause I mean, also some, I would say sleeping challenges, which makes it hard lately.
After that, we can try like a 365 days challenge.
Well,
1 year challenge.
Yeah, what I was going to say.
I mean, at this point, if we have it in the home, we'll probably end up floating every day.
Yeah, but I think it'll give you, because again, this is something I'm getting much more convicted on, to say it's almost a disservice. Like if you run these spaces, if you're hosting this practice for people, this opportunity, you need to have had a practice. You need to have been, you know, able to go deep in there to, you know, experience what it is to maybe float every week for quite a while, or do 15 days, 30 days, 1 week, whatever it is, to be able to properly guide people. As we were talking about before, it's like people can go in there, and if they're going deep, if they are coming back multiple times a week, and it can be destabilizing in some ways. Like it can be confronting and challenging to even the process of like kind of grounding back and coming back to yourself after. If you run a space like this, you've probably seen that. You've probably maybe felt it yourself, right? It's like kind of coming back to reality, and it takes some getting used to, right? And so I'm excited for you to have that more sustained, deeper experience. Excuse me. Because, I mean, you're in it now. You're guiding,
literally,
you know, the owners of these spaces too, right? And so that's a really important part, I think, for us, is to stay in our practice, obviously. Like that's what we're cheerleading here, a big part of it.
Oh yeah.
But then also to guide, you know, the owners of these spaces for the end user, because it's to go back to the not a spa piece of it. It's so much, like there's so much to floating that is in a whole other realm, to infrared sauna, to cold plunge, to massage, to red light therapy, and all those things have benefits. I love them too, but it's just like, there's so much that's different that we need to stay on top of our practice. I feel like I'm beating a poor horse that's...
What? There's some expression in English I don't understand.
Beating a dead horse. We've said it time and time again.
Beating a dead horse?
Yeah. What haven't we talked about yet? That
we've talked...
It's your first podcast, so I want to make sure we get it on.
I know. No, but we've talked about a lot of stuff. Anyways, we'll probably maybe do more of those episodes, but...
I mean, we'll say, like, again, thank you to DreamPod for,
thank you so much.
You know, working with us on this. We're excited to get the pod. We will be, you know, documenting more of our process with that. Maybe even some of the setup. You know, we're getting the inflatable tank, which is really cool. Makes it 1,000 times easier to get it into the house, to, you know, if and when we move out of this space, to bring it with us as well. So that's going to be... I haven't honestly really like seen it in use yet. Like we've known about those ones for some time.
Well, we've only seen the commercial ones.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we saw it at the conference too, but just not in use. But
no, I think we've covered a lot of stuff. I think like I really wanted to ask you like what you've learned over the years in the float industry, but you've touched upon that, everything you've learned from float center owners. We've talked about the importance of a float practice, like how to talk about floating for someone that doesn't know that practice.
I think I've got a good one we can maybe end on if it feels right.
Yeah. And wrap it up.
Yeah, I think this touches on a few different things. I did this like watercolor painting sketch. It was after a conversation I was having with a client, which it just clicked in my head. I was like, oh, floating, it's like in many ways coming home to yourself. Like that's one of the simple core, what is this actually really? Okay, it's coming home to yourself, right? Not the fake self, not the self, maybe the mask we put on or the one that we've like been given by others that isn't really our true self, right? It's like coming back to who we really, really are in a deep, in a very sacred, meaningful way. And then, we see these challenges that I've gone through, that the owners of these spaces have gone through. A lot of it stems from, and this is also just like blanket for a lot of the problems in the world, stems from like identity, right? Like who do we see ourselves as? Who do others see us as? Or like what are the labels that they're putting on us, right? What are sort of like the lies of who we believe we are that are not true, that are like the core of what's holding us back, right? And it kind of just clicked in my head. I'm like, these are like identity
crisis.
Well, they're like identity. Yes, but it's like these are identity centers. It's like that space, that time and that space to, as we said before, surrender, to let go, to open back up and like come home to ourselves, but also like be reminded by what I call source, right? Like whatever that means to you, whatever your framing, your belief is, source, something greater than you, a higher power, can remind us of like who we actually are, like the truth of who we are, right? Versus, again, the struggling float center owner under so much pressure, you feel like you've tried all these things, it just like it's not clicking, or the business is under pressure, and then for whatever reason we get stuck, or we feel like I'm a failing business owner, right? Like I'm not doing a good enough job, I don't know enough, right? And you get stuck and you're kind of trapped by that identity. And the easiest, fastest, most potent way to deal with what the actual problem is, and in my perspective on this, is like that's the problem, right? The ads don't matter, your booking system doesn't matter, like it's not that you're in the wrong area, it's not that the idea was wrong, it's
gotta get to
there's a false identity that's kind of like trapped you, that needs to be dealt with. And the float tank is sort of like the space to battle that, to let go of it, to be reminded, to shut out all the noise, because it's like this kind of happens from the noise, right? All the craziness of the world, all of the pressures that are put on us can kind of form that hard shell of this fake identity, and then we have to be, again, constantly surrendering to that. And so that kind of clicked for me, of, again, for myself, I've done 500 plus hours of floating, and how I see myself, who I know I am, I think in large part comes from being able to go into that space, to not have the noise kind of like confuse me or solidify and add to these lies that I've carried, or these like fake identities. And I think navigating this world, which is becoming more chaotic, more hard to decipher what is real, what is true, what is like right or wrong, or sort of like what is the thing that I should be doing right now,
Yeah.
I think it's much easier when you're like rooted, grounded, have strong foundations of like who you are.
Wow. It's beautiful. That was good. No, but as you were saying all of this, I was just thinking of a tree. You know, like you have to like work on the roots and the foundation of the tree before you grow all these branches and leaves.
Yeah.
So,
and sometimes,
ooh.
I don't know if that's a good, you know, a tree doesn't worry about,
oh yeah, no.
You know, I've talked about this with my clients. It's like a tree doesn't worry about growing. A tree doesn't worry about blooming in the, you know, we have all these trees around us, and it's wild how we're looking at them right now. There, we have this beautiful view when all the leaves are gone, and it's kind of really cool to see through. And then, you know, I don't know, maybe within a month or so, it's going to blossom, and we have like no view, which is fine. Like we have a view of trees. But like, yeah, being around nature and being reminded that like the tree is not stressing about like, oh my God, I need to grow leaves or whatever. And a tree's not worrying about like, oh, am I a good tree or am I failing as a tree? Like, right. Like we play all these mental games and we get trapped in these false identities, or we take on kind of other people's judgments, all of this noise of the world of advertisement and weird media and AI stuff, right? And
humans are complex creatures.
Yeah, but it's again the simple act of just giving ourselves the space away from all that, surrendering and not carrying all of it, letting it go, and just being reminded of like who you really are. And I think like, especially, you know, if you own a float center, being reminded that like you've been kind of gifted this path, you've been led on this path, there's a reason for this, there's a very deep why, and to remember that you're not doing it all on your own, that you're supported, right? Like that in the very first place, you were led, you were supported. I've heard this time and time again, and that did not change, you know, after you built the space or in the middle of your space or whatever. So I think to get back into the tank and remember that like we're all part of this, you know, very transformational shift in the world through these very weird, unique spaces. And yeah, it's not all on your shoulders, right? Like even the identity of like, I'm not quite sure how to put this, the identity of like someone who's supported or like you're not the person who's like carrying the whole thing, right? Like,
right. It's not all on their shoulder. Like,
I mean, I guess it's the identity of like to surrender to whatever that higher power is for you, right? Like that it's,
you don't have control over everything.
Yeah.
Period.
Any last comments? Any last topics?
Yeah, no, I think we've covered it all, but it's been very interesting to understand the float industry in the last few years, and also see you go through all the changes in the last 2 years with the business, and how you've evolved from like an agency to mentorship to building system. Yeah, it's been beautiful to see how much you care for the industry, how much you care for floating. It's incredible. Like I'm so grateful for that. I'm grateful, obviously, that we met, but I'm also so grateful that you brought floating into my life, because it's such an amazing tool. And I'm excited to get our float tank so I can float more regularly. And yeah, we'll document the whole thing. And I don't think it will be the last episode that we do together. And I'm excited to, you know, see where this grows to. Mm-hmm.
I think one last thing on this whole identity, I don't think I tied it, and it's funny because it ties into your situation too.
My situation?
You were talking about this before, like float center owners, I think, avoid or resist the identity of like being a business owner, or it gets twisted and kind of pulled into like, oh, I'm like not good enough as a business owner, or I'm failing as a business owner. Right. And so I think it's like to accept that unless you're running a charity or a nonprofit and you have some other funding source, like you have to you're running a business, right? And there's like realities of that, but also owning like you're a business owner, and you know, there's empowerment in that, there's responsibilities with that, right? To maybe wrap it up and bring it back to you, like you literally just, I mean, it's been a wild, I don't know, 3-4 weeks. You know, we got horribly flu sick, the two of us, midway through your first day.
Literally, first day that we started working together, we had a good 4-hour session. We were doing stuff, and then I started not feeling good, and then for days we were gone. We were out.
Wiped out. So that was also our, you know, we thankfully we have had a lot of practice, but that was a moment of like, I was like, I need to get you set up. We need to get the business like running. And then at a certain point, it was just, we have to surrender to puking our guts.
The last month has been like a month of learning to completely surrender.
Yeah.
I've always like said in my whole life, like whenever I would try to do something and I would like try to control a situation too much, as soon as I would let go, it would fix itself. It would work out. So I'm trying to practice this every day, and the last month has been more than that ever, because I had a 9-to-5 corporate job, and for months I was tired of doing it. As much as I loved the company that I was working for, I needed something new. I wanted for us to work together. I was excited to try something new, like being a business owner. Like
it also just literally like serendip, like it's hilarious how much of a, you know, I talked about this with my mentors from over the last couple of years, and they're just like, like that's the most obvious move in the world. She does onboarding and client success, and she's, you know, develops trainings and like creates content, and it's like those are all the things that would be most helpful for the business and most supportive for me. And you know, that those are your strengths. That's what you're really good at. It's not that like I mean, some of those things I'm not the best at, or you're a lot better. But it's just like, it fit so simply and made so much sense that it was like, and then I think that was, you know, where we got to the actual decision and the move of like, when's the right time? It's like,
there's no right time.
There's no right time, but also like, it felt like we were in resistance to surrendering to what was so obvious, right? It was right in front of us, and it was so obvious. I think of, again, moving here, when we came and saw this place, it felt like it was like on a silver platter handed to us, and it was a stretch. It was kind of scary, right?
Yeah.
But it was like, it felt stupid to be like, yeah, no, this doesn't feel like the thing, right? But to go back to the, you know, the identity, business owner, like you have shifted. I've been doing this I've been working for myself for, I don't know, like 15 years or something, right? There was a couple of years pre-committing fully to the float industry, more floats, which is now evolved into the float practice. But like I have conversations with some people sometimes who like work jobs, and I just,
it's different.
I'm like so far out of the world for such a long time, where
it is so different. And that's why like I'm so happy I made this decision. And it's funny because literally, was it last week? Like I told them, like I was on Instagram and I saw a video of a woman that owns multiple businesses, and I was looking at that video and I was like, oh my God, I can never own a business. And then for a second I was like, wait a second. Technically now I own a business too, because we
not technically.
We own a business together, and I was like, damn. But I'm so happy I made this decision, and I think it was scary at first before I really resigned my old job, like gave in my resignation letter. I was scared. I was like, is this the right time? Is this the right move? You know, but just completely letting go, surrendering, and accepting that it's going to work out, and just trusting, you know, it made all the difference in the world.
Yep.
Like there's I don't think I could have done that without this faith and just, yeah, letting go. And anyways, it's been really good. It's been fun, honestly, to, as much as, because also for the last 2 years, like dating, being together, I learned the float industry, like I said, and I've learned about your clients. So, you know, jumping in, it was not really scary because I knew what to expect. And
like what it's like to run a business, you know, especially I think earlier on, like I've worked really hard to not just endlessly run the race of, well, I'm working on the weekend, like I'm working late nights and I'm working on the weekend. Like I've done many years and many hours of that, right? And like I've worked really hard systems and just like what do you call it? Just habits and boundaries to be like, you know, I can still work hard and I can stretch, and maybe there's times where I do need to do that, but like I also don't have to live my life, you know, just working 24/7 and constantly in burnout. Like I've paid my dues of making those mistakes or learning those lessons, but you've seen like there's still realities. Again, it's almost like you're living in two different worlds of like you run a business, you own a business, there's different levels of responsibility, there's different levels of just work and things to manage. Again, challenges of this modern world, and like there's the truth to the economy and like what's going on in the big picture. So yeah, you've seen that, you felt it, you've supported me through that, and I'm very grateful for that. And again, like that's, I know that the business would not have evolved where it is, that I wouldn't have evolved where I've gotten to now without your support, right? Like I've done it, you know,
thanks.
Solo, right? I've done it
for a long time
without having that level of support or that type of support. And I've felt like what it's like to, not to do it fully on my own, but just like without what we have now.
Yeah, no, it's different.
Right? And again, now you're fully in it, but to kind of bring it back to my original point, I've seen little moments, and I'm excited we're so early in this for us working together, and you know, being out of a full-time job and being a business owner, working for yourself. Having that freedom, having the autonomy of that, but also like stepping into the responsibility of that, and like us doing it together. And I'm just excited. And again, I see this with my clients where like you Angela, I'll give her flowers. Shout right out. At the end here. Yeah, no, she put words to it so beautifully, where it was like she felt like she was moving from being owned by the business to now being the business owner, right? And again, like that's well said. That's like the identity shift of, you can kind of, and this was me in the agency. I built myself a business that I was kind of trapped in, that I hated. It was working really well. It was getting results for people. It made good money, and at the same time, I was built myself a job that I didn't love. It wasn't aligned with my true best gifts and how I could serve. And then I saw how there was a much, at least like one step of how, you know, I could serve in a much greater way. There was a greater need somewhere else. But it's like, you can be a business owner and basically just be working a 9-to-5 type job for yourself, right? And you're owned by the business. Whereas the deeper, harder work is some of the stuff that we work with our clients on, of the actual foundations and like questioning things of like, well, why are you doing it this way? Or like, why are you running these discounts? And it can be confronting and be challenging, but that's where you actually kind of flip it. And it's like, I don't have to do it that way, right? I want to do it this way. This is what aligns with me. This is my vision, right? And you become the business owner, where you lead it, and you can craft it in a way that is, it's like it's not even a 10x move. It's like a 1000x move, right? Of you can help people more. The business is well funded. You have more autonomy. You have more freedom. and it just flows because it's like aligned, and it's what's the word? Coming from like a strong source, right? Whereas the other way, you're not in alignment, and you're just kind of wrestling, you're fighting, and it's very it's very difficult, not in sort of the helpful ways.
Yeah. No, but definitely like owning a business now, it's like we're working towards a project that we love, something that aligns with our values, something that we want to do, versus before when I used to work a 9 to 5. As much as I loved my job, I loved my team, the company that I worked for, with the mission of the company. At the end of the day, I was working for someone else's project, right? Like I was not working towards my end goal. So I think this is a big shift that I appreciate, is just being able to choose that, you know what, this is our thing, this is our project, and we're working towards this as a team. And yeah,
it's exciting.
Yeah, it's been really good.
Okay, any last I feel like I've said my piece.
Wow.
Yeah,
I agree, me too. No, I'm really happy with this. I'm glad we did this. We'll document our 30-day float challenge for sure. It's going to be really exciting. We can maybe do another episode after the 30-day float challenge and share our experience with that specifically. And also having it at home, like just floating. It's going to be easy. So yeah, it's been really fun. I've never done a podcast, so what's next?
You don't know how to wrap it up?
Thank you for listening. Subscribe, comment. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, just follow along, subscribe. And this is our second one. We're just going to continue to, I think, what feels right. Like, we're not really on a schedule. It's just based on
we're going with the flow.
As things come up, as inspiration strikes. But we want to share. I feel very convicted, and I think you more and more. It was cool to see you speaking to these things, but there's some very core philosophical aspects of what we have uncovered, like through the float practice itself, being in the tank, through working very, very in depth with float center owners, like personally, and then also obviously within their business, that we haven't really heard anywhere else, right? That the more that we're sharing it, it's really resonating with people, and I think we're convicted to, and I'm starting to see more and more. Again, the last podcast we talked about this. There's been this lack, there's been this void of a vision of like, where's this going? Are these businesses able to be successful? The world is so hard, blah, 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 all these things. And it's like, I'm seeing more and more what these centers, what these businesses can really be. And I think it starts from those philosophies, from the foundations. And so, we want to speak on that more. We want to document our practices more. And,
and if anyone wants to come on the podcast, they're more than welcome. I think it would be interesting to get different perspectives, like float center owners, but also people that float regularly, maybe athletes that float, or anyone. I think the float industry is worth booming. It's worth investing in it. It's worth giving it more attention.
Yep. So. Yeah, and to bring it back to what we were talking about before, like the part of the purpose, I think, for this is to be the space to invite people to open up, to share their stories, whether they're an owner, they have this deep why, they've seen these powerful stories of people coming through. And then, people who, just individuals who have floated at a center, they have a tank at home, who have these transformational stories. We want this to be a space and a platform to highlight that as well. So, please reach out. We would love to hear from you, to speak with you. Obviously, everyone will be hearing more from you as well.
Moi?
Yes. Maybe a little bit in French, mostly in English. And,
pour mes Français et mes Canadiens, on fera un podcast ensemble.
Ouais. I'm still learning. But yeah, I think we can wrap there.
Yeah.
This was a great episode, and grateful that we got to share our story, to connect.
Me too.
On this, and
That's great.
We'll talk to everyone soon.
Absolutely. Bye.